There's a moment every grower experiences when they look out at their soil and realize it's no longer alive. It doesn't matter whether you farm an acre, a backyard, or just a few raised beds, the signs are, well, unmistakable. Water runs off instead of sinking in. Plants stall out no matter how much compost you add. The soil turns pale, tight and powdery. Worms disappear. You can almost feel the ground giving up on you. That was the state of my soil not long ago, and honestly it was frustrating because I believed I had done everything right. Then I stumbled on a method so simple and inexpensive that it felt like it shouldn't work at all. But this $1 mulch trick reversed months of decline in just a few weeks, and the transformation looked like something straight out of a forgotten chapter on traditional land stewardship. This approach isn't flashy, and it doesn't rely on fertilizers, machinery, or complicated ratios. It relies on understanding how ancient agricultural communities, frontier homesteaders, and early settlers kept land fertile without modern inputs. They didn't compost every scrap. They didn't buy amendments. They simply used whatever organic material existed in abundance and layered it in a way that, well, mimicked nature's own repair process. What I'm about to share is the same principle, just adapted to a modern garden. The method begins by restoring the soil's moisture cycle before anything else can work. Dead soil is almost always dry soil, and honestly, the biggest mistake people make when mulching is placing mulch on top of land that hasn't been fully rehydrated. Dry soil under mulch just stays dry for weeks because, you see, the mulch captures the water before it reaches the ground. So, the first step is soaking the soil deeply. This may take one long watering session or even 2 days of slow hydration. When moisture finally penetrates down to the lower profile, the soil begins to open up again. It becomes ready to receive life. Once the soil is hydrated, the $1 part of this method kicks in. Almost every region has access to a cheap or free organic material that people overlook. It can be shredded dry leaves, old grass clippings, roadside hay sweepings, dried weeds stripped of seed heads, cardboard ripped into strips, or even the thin brown paper from produce boxes. The key is to choose something carbon-rich and abundant. In my case, it was a pile of raked leaves and brown cardboard from grocery packaging that cost me the equivalent of $1 to collect. The next step is building the mulch layer in a way that mimics natural leaf litter instead of smothering the soil. This is where most people go wrong. They pack mulch down tightly or apply it too thick, creating a barrier that blocks airflow. Instead, the material must be loosened by hand. If using leaves, crumble them slightly so they don't form a mat. If using cardboard, tear it into strips and soak it first to soften it. If using dry grass, shake it out so it falls like a light blanket rather than a dense bale. The goal is a porous layer that breathes. This is also the point where, a small adjustment makes a huge difference. Instead of applying all the mulch at once, the layer should be built in 2 passes. The first layer is thin enough to see patches of soil between the pieces. After 2 or 3 days, once the material settles and airflow is confirmed, a second light layer is added. This creates a structure similar to natural woodland litter where, well, fresh material falls on top of older material gradually rather than all at once. This structure is what invites microbial life back into the surface zone. The true regeneration happens when the mulch creates a stable habitat for microbes, worms and root growth. Within a week or two, the soil beneath this breathable mulch begins to change. When you push the layer aside, the surface underneath is darker and slightly tacky instead of dusty. After about 3 weeks, if you lift the mulch gently, you often find small white fungal strands spreading through the material. This is not the bad kind of fungus that signals rot. This is the early network of decomposers, the same type that binds forest soil into a living sponge. Worms soon return because worms follow moisture and decaying carbon. They begin pulling fragments of mulch into the soil, creating tunnels that open the earth even further. The soil that once repelled water now accepts it immediately. Seedlings transplanted into gaps between the mulch root faster and wilt less because the temperature swings are reduced. Even crops in poor beds, like beans and squash, suddenly take off simply because the soil biology is awakening beneath them. A simple way to test whether the process is working is to pinch a handful of soil 1 week after mulching and another handful 3 weeks later. In most cases, the second handful holds together better, has more visible organic debris mixed in, and carries a darker tone. This is the early stage of soil aggregation, the foundation of long-term fertility. You can apply this method anywhere, honestly, using whatever materials are locally available. A gardener with no money can rake roadside leaf litter, gather faded grass clippings from a neighbour's lawn, or, save old compost bags and turn them into strips of brown carbon. Someone maintaining a homestead can use shredded corn stalks, dried bean vines, or decomposing straw. Urban growers can collect brown packing paper from shops that throw it out daily. In every case, a small amount of the right carbon, applied in a loose 2-layer structure over hydrated soil, triggers the same revival process. If you found this guide useful and you want more practical, historically grounded methods to revive your soil and grow better food, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this video with others, and help build a community of growers who rely on knowledge instead of expensive inputs. This method costs almost nothing, but the results speak for themselves.